Hey, and welcome to the Solid Verbal. Now would be a perfect time to consider subscribing. Yeah, that little subscribe button for year-round premium college football content. That's it. Here's the video. Enjoy. Subscribe.
Welcome back to the Solid Verbal. Boys and girls, my name is Ty Hildenbrandt, that fine gentleman over there, as always, in Central Time. Dan Rubenstein, sir.
Yeah.
How are you today?
Ty, look, we're now at the tail end of not just hours, not just stretches of time, but days of, from you, nonstop Wagner this, Wagner that, Rutgers who this, Staten Island this, Piscataway who that. And all I got to tell you is Rutgers came to play. That's where we're starting today. All right, Ty, break it down for me as you saw it.
66-7, big win for the Scarlet Knights over something called Wagner. Welcome back in, one and all. Thank you for tuning in to the Solid Verbal on this week 2 recap / reaction / highlights episode. We have got a lot to discuss. This episode, all of our episodes driven by our good friends over at Geico. You will also hear me reference a little website we know and love as verballers.com, verballers.com. We conducted our own top 10 poll, which I'm very excited. I'm weirdly excited that we were able to pull this off, but with great help from the Verballerhood, from our Discord and Patreon community, we were able to pull off our own top 10 poll. It's the first top 10 poll that's going to go live every Sunday morning, at least to the best of my knowledge, however official or unofficial that may be. So we will talk about that here in due time. And also, don't forget, solidverballive.com. Again, our live show in New York's getting awfully big in the window. And if I don't say so myself, given the results that we saw in week 2, by the time, week 6 or week 5, whenever we're doing that show, by the time that point of the season rolls around in early October, it's entirely possible that the landscape as we know it now will be drastically different. It's drastically different now as we record this on a Sunday morning than it was just like 72 hours ago. So a lot can change really quickly in college football. We have a cool concept that we're going to roll out this week, solidverballive.com. Come and see us in New York, October the 7th at Chelsea Music Hall. Dan, how are you?
I'm good. We had been promoting that show. It's like, it's the night before A&M Bama, and now I'm going to pivot in how I'm going to promote the events of the following day, that following Saturday. Like, it's Oklahoma State, Texas Tech. So Donovan Smith will try to win the game with every throw the following day. I'm very excited for that show. Our concept is sound, and I cannot wait for it. I am excited for all things Solid Verbal, but I'm locked in on discussing whatever the hell happened yesterday.
Let's start with your week 2 reverbs. Our guy Shay, big thanks, big shout out to our guy Shay in the Verballerhood, who so graciously donated his time, volunteered his time to help us put this together. A lot of calls. Here's what the Verballerhood had to say, Dan.
You know that the first thing that Queen Elizabeth did as soon as she got through those pearly gates was think, is there one more way I could screw the Irish?
Hi, this is Chris from Ankeny, Iowa.
It's Rocco from Virginia.
Hey, this is Chase from Oklahoma, and got to give it to Alabama, win your clunkers. And as a OU fan, personally, I'm really looking forward to hearing about how Texas almost beat Bama for the next 10 years.
This is Ray in Huntsville, Alabama. I didn't intend to start drinking at 11 a.m., but Alabama drove me to go through a half a bottle of Maker's Mark before that game was over. But, win your clunkers, right? Clonk in Austin.
Hey, it's Reagan from Texas. Look, losing to the number 1 team in the nation by 1 point is a killer, and there's no such thing as a moral victory, but I'm still very proud of my Longhorns, and at least Texas A&M lost to App State too. Welcome.
Did Notre Dame keep the receipt on Marcus Freeman? Is it too late to get a do-over on that head coaching hire? I mean, Justin Fuente is available.
This is Josh in Atlanta, and it's not the Fun Belt, it's the Stun Belt.
Do you think Notre Dame is ruining their chance to someday join the Sun Belt with their performance against Marshall today?
Nick Saban lost to Louisiana Monroe in his first year, right? That's what this is going to turn into for Marcus Freeman, right? right?
December 2021, Freeman era, baby. September 10th, 2022, for Freeman era, baby.
Can't wait for Dan to give us that sweet, sweet Missouri drive chart. Here's a bit of a sample. Interception, 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 interception.
Deep in the heart of Manhattan, Kansas today, the Wildcats took down the Tigers. The path to the Big 12 championship runs through the Little Apple. The Cats are hungry. That defense is ferocious. You don't want to see purple on a Saturday. The Cats are on the prowl. Email, baby, Cats by 90.
About A&M. Oh, Jimbo. Jimbo. That offensive guru and the things that he does to get Texas A&M in shape year after year to go 8-4. Ooh, we hope that they even reach that mark this year. Go Tigers.
What is it like to have a quarterback that loses to Florida because Will Levis can't relate?
I don't know about a little bit, but KJ Jefferson might have all of Steve McNair in him.
Hey, Dan and Ty, it's Grant, one of your resident Iowa State fans. What did I say on Thursday? It's gotta end sometime. It ended today. Roll clones. Let's go.
Whoever is daring Iowa's offense to be worse, stop.
This is Kirk Ferentz, Iowa Hawkeye head coach. We've noticed a troubling element in college football they call offense. Throwing the ball, heading off the ball, running the ball for touchdowns, not for Iowa. As a response for the 22 season, the Iowa coaching staff has decided to field only 2 defensive squads, one on each side, offense, defense, and dispense with this offensive offense that's ruined college football. Early estimates project we'll gain 3 touchdowns.
All right, there you go.
We need to give Shay an edit button.
Yeah, nice little slow fade there.
Thank you.
To end all things Iowa State chatter. We've got a lot to get through, Dan. I heard somebody in the reverbs reference Stun Belt Saturday, which is
great.
Much better than my Sun Belt Saturday that I had planned to go with here early on Sunday morning. But yeah, really all things Sun Belt. All things Sun Belt in week 2, everything coming up Sun Belt. What with the big App State win with Marshall over Notre Dame. Outside of the big upsets. Georgia Southern. I mean, what was your general vibe of week 2 as you watched from your wonderful home in Chicago?
I wanted to revisit the question with you where you were like, you know what? I'll always just take a team that has a great defense and no offense over vice versa. And now we can have an Iowa conversation. Be like, all right, that's what Iowa over North Carolina. That's what you want to spend 12 weeks doing? Yes? Riley Moss over Drake May. That's all I'm asking. Is if you are now, do you want to be an A&M fan? Is there any consideration now that we've seen your theory in the wild that it's more fun to root for a team with a killer defense and no hope of offense over the opposite?
I'm not here to talk about the past, Dan. We're here to talk about the future. Solid Verbal Week 2. We've got a lot of games to discuss. We did conduct our own Verballer Top 10 poll, which you can vote on at verballers.com. The readout here was Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State in that order, 1, 2, 3. No surprise. Michigan, Clemson, and Oklahoma being 4, 5, and 6. And then some other teams moving up by virtue of what they did in week 2. USC up from 10 in the AP poll to 7 in ours. Kentucky, a big jump after their win over Florida, all the way up to 8. Oklahoma State, a modest jump up to 9 and into the top 10 nonetheless. And rounding out, again, our top 10, which you can vote on at verballers.com, the Arkansas Razorbacks, Dan. So,
boom. Woo, big.
With all that being said, where should we start? Because there is a lot to discuss. It wasn't just the upsets. It was also the near upsets. We had a bunch of games go into overtime. Just really the best that college football had to offer in week 2? Where should it start as we go through this cavalcade of games?
I mean, it already did start with Rutgers over Wagner. So where are we going from there is what you're asking me. And I guess you don't want to discuss Holy Cross Buffalo at this moment. Let's start with Bama, Texas. Let's start with the early game.
Yeah, Jamie Hale, I don't know if you saw this tweet. Jamie Hale is a reporter for an ABC affiliate in Alabama, and she reported that the air conditioning in the Bama locker room was apparently, wink, wink, not working on Saturday. Okay. Crazy how that just happened. Weird. On game day. But here is the kicker. Here is the freaking kicker. Quote, Alabama anticipated this, and they brought their own. They brought their own air conditioner.
They always know. They always know.
They always know. Nick Saban, what a guy. At kickoff, Alabama was a 20.5 point favorite on the road. Nobody thought this game was going to be close. I was out here for weeks talking about the only way Texas covers is if Bama pulls their starters and...
Right.
Yeah. A couple things clear in this game right from the jump, Dan. First, and I think most surprising to me, was the fact that the Texas defense truly came to play. And for about 90% of this game, I don't know how much you watched, but I watched pretty much the entire thing in real time.
Yeah.
For what felt like about 90% of this game, Bryce Young was either under pressure or wasn't finding guys open down the field. And it ended up being a lot of short stuff for the Bama offense. Outside of a long Jace McClellan run at the end of the first quarter, the next longest play was 23 yards on a catch and run by Jahmyr Gibbs. And so to that end, some of the...
Not a receiver, by the way.
Not a receiver. Not a receiver. Yeah. To that end, the question that I think we've been asking all spring, but at least I was afraid to lean too much into about Bama's wide receiver room and what does it look like, and they lost a lot from last year. Like, how do they kind of build this thing together? We have a lot of confidence that they will in due time, but at least in week 2 in this game, Bama's wideouts were kind of anonymous out there.
Yeah.
And it was so much so that it felt like they couldn't go down the field, which is really a different vibe for Alabama, right? Like, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I mean, you go back to, brief Mac Jones and Tua, and you just got used to 21-0, 21-3 after 7 minutes of play in the first quarter. Like, that was an ordinary occurrence, and it was behind so much firepower at receiver. And so I'm not going to say Alabama is jaggy, like J-A-G, just a guy, like at receiver or a number of places, potentially, including the offensive line. But it's a different vantage point that we are taking with this Alabama team and seeing how they have to manufacture a certain amount of yardage, manufacture points, and make the best out of situations more often than not, that they had to survive a 50-ish yard field goal at the end of this game to get their act together late to win, that they go the second and third quarter not being able to get anything together on offense. And meanwhile, Texas, I'm not going to say out of nowhere because there is talent on this defense, but putting it all together to harass Bryce Young, to overwhelm at times an Alabama offensive line, which was also overwhelming itself with penalties and miscues.
Crazy.
15 penalties, by the way, for 100 yards, the most called penalties during Nick Saban's tenure in Tuscaloosa in a single game.
It's insane, and it wasn't just the penalties. I mean, the penalties I think were the greatest measure for how rattled Alabama was. But Alabama was rattled in this game to a degree that I don't really remember in the Saban era. Even if they're committing penalties, Dan, you don't see star players like Will Anderson losing their cool the way that Will Anderson lost
3 false starts or 3 offsides.
Yeah, the way that Will Anderson lost his head a little bit in this one. And, I get it. All these guys run hot. They want to win. They're pro prospects. This is what they're out there for. But I just don't remember guys being rattled to this degree at any point in recent memory within the Saban era. So I don't know if it was something going on in the field other than the score and the way that things were or weren't going for Alabama. But the penalties were definitely new. And at one point I tweeted out, Bama had more penalties at halftime than they had points, which was, again, totally a zag compared to what we expected in this football game, with them being a 20.5 point favorite. The other thing that we got to mention here, and perhaps there's an odd bit of symmetry with what went on in 2009 with, the
Colt McCoy,
the Colt McCoy injury. It's not apples to apples, but Quinn Ewers is different, Dan.
So early looking Quinn Ewers looks like he is going to be a game changer. So yes,
there's a little bit of when he throws the clouds part. There's you can see it. He did not seem fazed at all by Alabama, and it was early, and he got hurt in the first half. And I don't know what happens after second half adjustments if he's in there the whole way through, but it's not too hard to make that case to me that if Quinn Ewers is in that game the full way through, they end up winning, because not only did they not really touch him, but every pass he threw was on a rope, exactly where it needed to go. And Bama did not seem to have any answers for that early. So he has a sprained clavicle, which is not a body part I knew you could sprain.
It's a joint. It's the AC joint, which connect. I believe. Yeah. Because the clavicle is a bone.
Or an SC joint.
The collarbone, yeah.
There's joints. Yeah. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on in the shoulder region of the body. But nonetheless, hopefully it's not anything that forces him to miss any extended period of time. Hudson Card came in. I thought he did okay, but it's clear that Quinn Ewers is a lot better than Hudson Card. And I would hate to see him miss any extended period of time, because this could be a really exciting season still for Texas.
Sure.
They only lost by 1 to Alabama at home, despite being a heavy dog.
Yeah, I wasn't as infuriated, I think, as Texas fans were with the weird end zone call. It was strange.
It was weird, yeah.
Personal foul, roughing the passer, targeting was removed, and part of that was because the referee was not told correctly what was happening. And then there was a non-call with the intentional grounding. There kind of was a receiver on the goal line, and it seems like it's close enough because Bryce Young wasn't down. I don't know. That was a weird play, but that didn't decide the game nearly as much as Quinn Ewers' health and Texas's inability at the end of the game in that fourth quarter to get stops over the middle of the field.
Yep. I thought Texas had this one.
Great fight. Yeah.
I thought they had it. In the end, though, the Horns kicked a 26-yard field goal with a minute and a half left, but too much time for Bama, which at that point had gotten its offense off the ground a little bit better. Like you said, Texas could not get the stops. Bryce Young goes 5 of 7 on a final drive to set up Will Reichard for a 33-yard game-winning field goal. 20-19 was your final.
20-19. You're never too good to win your clunkers.
No.
You never are.
Do we have a sound for win your clunkers?
No, we should come up with one. It seems like it's the time to do so. Where we want to go? Florida, Kentucky?
I want to go.
Where do you want to go next?
No, we
got to
go
IU?
We got to go App State, Texas A&M.
Yeah, buddy. Yep.
Man, what a game. Shout out to our good friend Adam Witten from Learfield, who called this game with aplomb, with clearly, I think, wanting to burst out of his skin and do a primal scream, but knowing that as a professional he couldn't, as he called this one from the App State radio booth. What a game here. I mean, I didn't watch this game in real time. I went back afterwards.
Oh.
For what it's worth, I was decompressing from my own Sunbelt issues, which we'll, I'm sure, talk about in due time here. But the feedback on our Verbaler Discord was that this game was basically that scene out of Rounders in the end when Teddy KGB realizes he's been beaten and everyone huddles around him like, what do you want us to do? What do you want us to do? And he's like, no, the kid just beat me. I lost. And App State just straight up beat Texas A&M. There weren't tricks. There wasn't funny business. App State was really just the better team. And frankly, if you read the box score, I feel like that comes through. More yards, more first downs, more time of possession, better on third downs, fewer penalties, a running back and a quarterback capable of going over 100 yards, and obviously the 3 more points. So, none of this is to imply there was any kind of offensive explosion, because there wasn't. App State ran it 52 times. They ate the clock. A&M was ineffective on offense, had 9 first downs all game, which is just brutal. Haynes King, I know Jimbo loves Haynes King, but Haynes King kind of stunk in this game. And now A&M's got Miami next week, which is probably not going to be a picnic by any stretch if you drop one to App State, which is a good team. So this one, I know we had people on Discord talking it through about how they had a good feeling about App State plus the points. They were getting like 18 or 19 points at kickoff. But even still, it was really hard to kind of talk yourselves into it, because we've been told for 6-8 months running now how good A&M was going to be because of the recruiting class and because of the roster of talent that they had assembled. Clearly, that did not come to fruition on Saturday afternoon.
Oh, man. Good fantasy thing for the future. Jimbo's going to open up the offense this year. Jimbo's really going to... I know it's August 7th, and we haven't seen anything yet, but Jimbo's saying he's going to open up this offense. They're really going to do some cool, interesting new... Nope. Nope. God, the Jimbo Fisher, like, offensive genius fallacy. It's he and Tommy Reese in a little room sipping on their cold coffee, their stale, flavorless coffee. Yeah, I love it. I love it so much. Not because I root for Texas A&M to lose, but just because of the hype. Just because of the hype. Like, if you're a receiver, by the way, I looked it up. You know how many receivers have been drafted from Texas A&M during the Jimbo Fisher era? 0. 0.0. Why would you go to A&M if you're a receiver? Like, where's Evan Stewart going to transfer and thrive? I don't know, but he should. It's the same thing every year. It's the idea of not modernizing. It's the Jimbo knows, no explosive plays. Don't go for it on fourth down. This is A&M. This is how you take a 10-2 program and go 8-4. This is exactly how it works. And so App State ran the hell out of the ball, pushed this vaunted, and it's not the fault that, like, Texas A&M should recruit the best players.
Sure.
But they couldn't get off the field on defense. At all. And credit to App State, credit to Cam Peoples, who was wonderful all game long, Cameron Peoples. And Chase Rice wasn't amazing, but kind of a cool story in his own right. Can't crack the lineup at Clemson, of course, and then kind of bombs out at Duke and then finds a home at App State. They win games, and the A&M offense can't stay on the field. They can't. They're inept against it's a good App State program. It's a good App State team, but man, it's New Year, same story. And guess what? Probably going to happen next summer too, Ty.
Yeah.
And look, A&M could win all of the rest of their games, and yet here we are.
Yeah, I mean, talk about, as I said at the top, the changing landscape.
Yeah.
In the blink of an eye. If Bama can't go deep on offense, that changes the way we think about Alabama, especially in a conference with generally pretty good defense. If it's all close to the line of scrimmage, Bama's still going to win their fair share of games, and their defense is still really good. But, just saying, that changes the way we think about Bama. If this is what we get from A&M on offense, I mean, we were talking about A&M as potentially a title contender in the SEC West. Not anymore.
Because we're idiots, Ty.
Because we're idiots. No, I'm not. Look, we're not any kind of like Nostradamus out here, but
right.
I'm just saying it changes the complexion of things. It could get better. Like you said, both teams, frankly, could go and just win the rest of their games. They're that talented, but it's just funny how in this sport things can change so quickly. There are other SEC teams that we're going to talk about that definitely left a better impression in week 2. And it could go from being a conference that we thought would be generally boring, led by Alabama and Georgia, and still probably will be led by Georgia based on what we saw in week 1, to something that's a little bit more wide open and more fun to follow just as a fan.
App State's the story here, man.
I know.
That
they
run
are
at the end. It's such a cool story to get paid to win. First of all, something Jimbo can't fully relate to.
Heyo
at A&M. Look, to lose the way they did to North Carolina the week before, storming back the way they did, and then holding on and winning the way they did in College Station. Very, very cool.
Two different styles of play too, right?
Yeah.
Two very different games.
Definitely.
All right. Congrats to App State, big win. Let's stick in the Sun Belt. Let's just get this over with. Marshall 26, Notre Dame 21, Dan.
Why are we getting it over with? Let's let this breathe.
There is a lot of overlap here to the A&M loss, frankly. I think App State was probably more dominant on the score sheet, but the vibe was still the same. The team from the Sun Belt, in both cases, felt better prepared. And before you know it, you're watching. It's late in the third quarter. Look at the clock. Okay. Getting late early. You're waiting for your team, in my case, Notre Dame, to put it together. And it never happens. The promise of the offense, the promise of the talent, of the newcomer, just, they kind of feel stuck in the mud. And I give Marshall a lot of credit for that because Marshall came in, they were prepared. They were aggressive the full way through. They challenged Notre Dame at every turn. It was not a team that was at all intimidated to come into South Bend and play in that stadium for the first time in its program history. So they ran the ball pretty well. They controlled the line of scrimmage, especially when Notre Dame was...
Kalen LeBourne, the Florida State transfer?
Yep.
That's who was
Yep.
having himself a nice little day. Continue.
Yeah, and they just controlled the line of scrimmage, especially when Notre Dame was on offense. So, I mean, I could rattle off a bunch of points here. I don't know how much of this game you watched. I saw the full thing. It makes me sick to my stomach. I'm sick to my stomach.
It was it 9-7 at halftime? It was something like that. Marshall was up at halftime, so I didn't really watch a ton of the first half, but I did watch... Yeah, I watched that second half for sure.
I mean, as the wise prophet David Pollack likes to say, it all starts up front.
Yeah.
It all starts up front. And Notre Dame's offensive line really struggled in all phases of the game. Like a lot of miscommunication up front, down the stretch when they needed some hard yards. They sort of got bullied, which is not something you're used to seeing from a Notre Dame line. And I know they're trying to figure it out, but much ado about bringing back Harry Heastand. Maybe don't bring him back if this is what it's going to look like.
Oh, come on. I mean, these are not necessarily his recruits. It's not necessarily his exact situation.
I know,
he left,
but
right? He left for the Bears.
All I'm saying is this, and this is a great quote that I pulled from Irish Breakdown, another site that covers Notre Dame. Quote, "It's as if Notre Dame continues to call a game thinking it has a really good offensive line," which I think is spot on. And that's sort of how Tommy Rees called this game. The bad line play doesn't explain everything. It explains a lot, but not everything. For the second straight week, Tyler Buckner's out there missing open guys. And I don't know if it's just inaccuracy or if he's not seeing them. It's probably a combination of both. But it was very apparent on the broadcast. You didn't need the all-22 to see it. Not only is he missing guys, but the wide receivers aren't getting open. So when guys do get open and you can't hit them, that's a problem. Add in some late turnovers in the passing game, and that's what kills your hopes of any kind of comeback. So it really feels like there's a lot wrong with this team right now. We've now seen Marcus Freeman coach 3 very winnable games against good teams. And I go back to the Fiesta Bowl with Oklahoma State. They should have won that game. We can debate how winnable the Ohio State game was, but it was at least close. If they had done more on offense, perhaps that's something that could have had a different outcome, and this one was there too. So, I have not seen a whole lot early to instill confidence in where this thing is headed. I recorded that video afterwards. I stand by it. I do not have a great level of confidence, at least on offense. There's only so much the defense can do.
Yeah.
On offense, I do not have a great sense of confidence that Marcus Freeman and Tommy Rees and Tyler Buckner and whoever else is building this thing with any sense of momentum in a good direction. It's just, we have not seen that yet.
Yeah, it's very easy, and I think it makes sense to say, look, Marcus Freeman, first-time head coach, young guy, never been in a position like this. You got to give him some time. This has been an excellent program these last few years. The cupboard isn't bare.
No.
They've recruited well. They were pseudo-ish on the verge of a playoff berth last year when Brian Kelly left. Were they not? Ahead of bowl season?
Yep.
So this has been a perennial top 10, 12 program that did not fall off. It fell off on offense, but not in terms of wins and losses, especially against outmatched teams. Look, they had close games. Like a bad Louisville team, they beat something like 12-7, right?
Yep.
There's a reason we say win your clunkers. That eventually the talent and the brain power in the booth and on the sideline should win out. And yes, you might not cover a spread, but you won 13-10. You won 21-18, and you live to go on another week with another notch in the win column.
Bama won a clunker.
But we also talked about Notre Dame, where I'm often wrong. But there was a weird degree of silence about Tyler Buckner's great. Watch out for Tyler. There wasn't that. There wasn't that in camp. And maybe there was from beat writers who were there wasn't that on a national scale. Like, this is the next guy, in the world of CJ Stroud and JJ McCart. There wasn't that buzz for Tyler Buckner. Maybe there will be.
Yeah.
But that was kind of concerning for me going into the season. They're like, okay, he's the guy. They struggle. They struggle on offense, and the defense has guys, but it's sort of the same thing every year without like that more experienced Ian Book play to bail them out.
Yeah, I said to Mom H, I watched this with Mom H, and I said to her, and I couldn't believe I said it. It was almost like a reflex. Where's Ian Book when you need him?
Yeah.
I spent 3 years dunking on Ian Book because he couldn't throw the deep ball and he was very limited offensively. I would kill for Ian Book after what we saw yesterday.
Look, Marshall's a good team. They're going to be favored in a majority of their games. They're in a new exciting conference in the Sun Belt. They're one of it's a great story. Charles Huff, whose name I screwed up multiple times in the offseason, comes over from Alabama, good recruiter, has a very good reputation. I think he's going to do really cool things. By the way, for West Virginia's one true team after yesterday. Shout out to Huntington. If Notre Dame is a team without like an unimpressive but above average older quarterback and a below average offensive line, what are they really?
Yeah, I know.
Like, what is the identity of this program if they don't have offensive linemen or a vaguely disappointing but ultimately winning upperclassman quarterback?
I know. Well, look, we'll move on. We'll talk about a bunch of other games that we need to get to. But on the Tommy Rees point, I've been thinking so much about your point.
Yeah.
Do we really know that he's a good offensive coordinator?
Yeah.
And I see the quote again, kind of seems like they're scheming as if they have a good offensive line. They're waiting for it to materialize.
Mm-hmm.
And it really feels that way. It feels like, I don't know, they're maybe missing the boat on something here, because there were large swaths of that game where I looked over to Mama H and said, what's the plan here? Like, I have no confidence they're going to be able to dial something up that's going to make this any better.
It's also the first month of a first time. It's like, it's very easy to say like Notre Dame should continue to be excellent no matter what the situation is, no matter who they play. It's very easy to say that. Marcus Freeman, it's his first month on the job. He's a younger guy. It takes some time. You look at who Brian Kelly lost to. You look at who anybody loses to early on in their tenure. I say that as a first-class loser watching my team with a young head coach. Granted, George is a little bit different than Marshall. But it takes time. It takes time. It's hard to preach patience in the moment, but it does take time.
Yeah, I am not saying we should run Tommy Rees. We should run Marcus Freeman out of Dodge. I'm not saying that.
Right.
I do think it's fair to give them time, but not a good look. Losing to Marshall at home.
No.
Kudos to the Thundering Herd, though. Big win for Charles Huff. All right. BYU 26, Baylor 20. In double overtime, I fell asleep before, during, and after this game, Dan. Mm-hmm. And then I pieced it together with the help from YouTube as if it were a bad dream this morning.
Yeah.
This one featured missed kicks, missed opportunities for both teams to win the game. In the end, it does go to double overtime. BYU gets a big stop and subsequently makes it to 2-0. The headlines before this game on Friday night, I believe Friday night, were that both Gunnar Romney, and Puka Nacua, BYU's two best wideouts, were going to miss this one. But the line didn't move. The point spread didn't move at all. And so I saw a bunch of people on Twitter talking about, oh boy, time to go Baylor hard. The line didn't move, which told me something. And it didn't seem like it really affected them in this game. Jaron Hall has a howitzer for an arm. They wanted to run. They couldn't really run. He connected up with Chase Roberts, their freshman wideout, who was really good in this football game.
Yep.
BYU's attack, like I said, almost exclusively through the air. Baylor just a different animal up front. They were able to really hold down that BYU ground assault. To that end, it's not like Baylor tore it up on the ground either. They tried more attempts, but still under 3 yards per carry. Rough day for the Baylor offense as a whole. Blake Shapen didn't really look good. Just never felt like they could build any momentum in this game. And again, had chances to win, but made some mistakes, plagued by penalties, 14 penalties, for 117 yards for the Bears. And despite having really good options, really good opportunities down the stretch to get this one on the road, BYU gets the dub 26-20.
Ty, I'm worried a little bit after watching this game for Baylor in the way that I'm worried at the moment for Oregon. And I'm worried that they have a bit of a pickleball offense. Yes, they can move it around a little bit. We're playing on this tiny little field. We can hit some crossers and screens. but you're still playing pickleball. You're still doing tiny little things on a tiny little court, and that Baylor can't go downfield, and that Baylor's not generating bigger plays. And I think BYU is a very good team. I think you should be able to generate bigger plays at Baylor in year 3 if you're Dave Aranda, and that you make this very specific decision to go to Blake Shapen because you think he gives you the better option for scoring more points and generating bigger plays.
Yeah.
And Baylor, game 2 on the road against a pretty decent team, clearly the less explosive team between these two. A team they beat last year with Gary Bohannon by, a couple touchdowns, right?
Yeah.
Then they beat them in Waco. It's a different story. It's a different year. There's different players on the field. I get all of that. But watching this game, you can't help but notice that Baylor's doing everything in very confined spaces on offense. And that is a worrisome thing to me because if you have to drive down the field 14 plays at a time, 10 plays at a time, 11 plays at a time, it's more opportunity for turnovers, it's more opportunity for penalties, it's more opportunities for miscommunication and miscues, whatever. And pickleball Baylor worries me.
Yeah.
It just does. You ever watch a pickleball highlight on YouTube or Instagram? It's awful. I'm sure it's a ton of fun to physically play pickleball, but the actual act of watching a highlight is one of the most jaw-droppingly
You're coming into this, though,
things.
with an extreme tennis bias.
That is true. I should put all my cards on the table. I do have a tennis bias. But watching people sort of tap around a wiffle ball like 8 feet at a time, it just worries me, and I hope it's not the case, and I hope Baylor's offense improves and evolves over the course of the season. But it was a tough watch on all of these third downs. Just like, beep, beep, 4 yards, beep, beep, 6 yards, beep, beep, 2 yards. I don't like watching that, and I hope for Baylor's sake and the fans of Baylor's sake that it improves.
No, we talked about it in the previews. Does Baylor have a problem? They lose a lot of production, not just with Abram Smith, but out wide. We'll see what they can do. But they lose on the road. Nice win for BYU. Starts off 2-0. Iowa State finally gets a dub over Iowa. Matt Campbell.
Yeah.
10-7, Dan. Okay. This game was exactly what we thought it was going to be, right?
I was hoping for slightly more.
Slightly more?
I held out hope for a 17-13. You're never as bad as you are on your worst day. You're never as good as you are on your best day, which is why I gave the points with Iowa that even if Spencer Petras is definitively not a good Big Ten quarterback, that they can generate points in creative ways. Maybe they get short fields, which they did and needed to score that touchdown. It was a blocked punt, if I recall correctly. Things are bad in Iowa City.
Oh, my gosh, Dan.
And a lot of teams have had really disastrous Septembers and very quietly improved over the course of the season. I'm hopeful for that for just the sake of our retinas, Ty.
Yeah.
Our irises. But it's hard to visualize at this point how things can get better, and good for Iowa State for scoring that touchdown in the second half. Good for Iowa State for breaking that streak, but this was not a win for anybody, really.
Yeah, this was a tough watch the full way through. Two interesting points on that front. Iowa State, despite the fact that Iowa has a really good defense, which I think everybody would agree it's good, they moved the ball pretty consistently in this game. They made a lot of mistakes, and it wasn't until the very end that Hunter Decker's only a single Decker with one touchdown pass, but it was a big one to Xavier Hutchinson, which capped off a long drive later in the game to get him to 10 points and win this one by 3. But I was impressed by just how their offense didn't put up a whole lot of points and obviously made mistakes, but was able to move the ball fairly consistently against Iowa. On the Iowa side, though, here's what's interesting to me. They asked Kirk Ferentz after the game about his offense, right? It's going to be the question that he's presented with, I'm sure, all throughout the early part of the season, provided it doesn't get any better. His quote was this, quote, "It's not going well for Petras right now. It's not going well for anybody in the offense, quite frankly. If we're making the change, if making the change is the best thing, we'll consider it. If not, we'll keep pushing forward, see what we can do." There's a lot of coach speak in there where he doesn't really say anything, but by just referencing the change, I believe what he's referring to is swapping out quarterbacks. If the implication here is that the problem with the Iowa offense is simply the quarterback, I believe they've tried that solution before, right? I don't think that's the problem. It might be part of the problem, but the problem is that the scheme sucks. The scheme sucks. And he turned the offense over to his kid. That's the problem. I'm sure they're all very nice people. We met Kirk Ferentz.
It's such a dismissive way to refer to Brian Ferentz, but he's earned it.
He got a $40,000 increase. He makes $900,000 a year. I understand that's the business that they're in, but he scored exactly one touchdown with this offense in 2 weeks against teams that he should have scored more against. So I don't want to hear it that this is a quarterback thing. This is not a quarterback thing. That's part of it, but this is a bigger deal. And, I hope for Iowa fans' sake, many of whom came out, nice people who came out to our Chicago show. I don't want to see them go through this all year. It's really been bad. So 10-7, Iowa State, Matt Campbell, congratulations. He gets the monkey off his back, beating Kirk Ferentz for the first time. But 10-7 was a really rough watch.
You know when the State Department gets involved when Americans abroad end up in precarious situations?
Sure.
That, they were hiking and they crossed the border and they didn't realize it and they were captured. Do we think that the State Department needs to get involved with Sam Laporta, with Xavier Hutchinson? Do you think that just a conversation needs to be broached about finding them a better home? And, in the cover of night, one of those choppers that was used in the Bin Laden raid to get the quality components of these offenses out of the state of Iowa.
I think Iowa State will be okay.
Yeah, probably.
Xavier Hutchinson will be okay, but...
I know, but it was also a tough
that might have been what happened for Charlie Jones, who's now at Purdue.
Right, I was like, does Charlie Jones look at the Shawshank Redemption poster of he crawled through 14 miles of shit and say like, oh, you know what? Thought it was a work of fiction. I get it. Charlie Jones and the freedom.
Chuck Sizzle.
Getting into the Breaking Bad vacuum van in the cover of night to get to Purdue and to have fun on offense. You get it that I look, if I'm going to say, if you're a receiver, why do you commit to Texas A&M knowing that you're getting involved in a Jimbo Fisher offense? If you're a receiver, I understand maybe Iowa's the best option. You want to prove your talents against the Big Ten. Walk on somewhere better.
Yeah.
Take a chance on yourself, earn a scholarship in camp, and hope for the best. Because for the life of me, you might love the Iowa campus. They might have a major you want to do. You might really respond well to some of the assistant coaches. You might have a great time with other visitors on your official visit to Iowa City. Iowa City, I enjoyed my time there. It seemed like a cool enough college town in my limited time there. But at the same time, what are we doing?
No.
What are we doing?
What are we doing?
That's all.
All right. God, that killed me. Okay. Let's talk about what went on in the SEC. Let's move through briskly, if we can. A bunch of results here that I will read off. We can react to them if we feel so inclined. LSU wins big over Southern, Ole Miss big over Central Arkansas, and Georgia shuts out Samford. We also had Auburn surviving against the San Jose State Spartans by a 24-16 score.
Yeah.
We had Mississippi State winning on the road by 22 over Arizona. We had Arkansas by 14 over South Carolina. Tennessee over Pitt in a wild overtime game. And, of course, the Kentucky-Florida game that was played in the evening. That was my lock of the week, one of my two locks of the week, the only one that hit this week. Kentucky wins that one by a 26-16 score. Which of these games jumped out to you most?
All of them. Okay. Yeah, all of them jumped out the most because it was a very entertaining day for the most part, win or lose in the SEC. So, Anthony Richardson's elite quarterback campaign took a hit.
Four yards rushing, Dan. 4 yards rushing. There were 4 big yards, but...
Yeah, I think he also had 4 yards per attempt as well through the air. So it was a tough day for the Florida offense. Kentucky did get healthier along the edge. Did you see the pick that Anthony Richardson threw to? Was it? Oh God, it was Wright. I know that Jordan Wright, I think, who came back from suspension. Arguably my favorite kind of interception, which is throwing an interception 4 feet down the field when an edge guy is just there and puts a paw on it and intercepts it. Kentucky did not themselves have a great day.
No,
on either side of the
ball. This was a meat grinder of a defensive game.
Yes. More defense than offense went in the way of the Cats. But yeah, Will Levis made a good play downfield. They have a young receiver who seems promising. Kentucky does, but still seem to miss Chris Rodriguez in the run game. The offensive line got better over the course of the game, but still had some miscues in the first half. And Kentucky has now won more often than not against, I think they're 3-2 over the last 5 years against Florida. So I wouldn't go as far as saying win your clunkers, but an impressive win to go to the Swamp and win like they did with some of the mistakes that they made and some of the slowdowns that they had on offense. Will Levis is impressive to me. Not incredible, but impressive. Like, definitely, Will Levis strikes me as somebody who Notre Dame should have, right? That he's like, he's pretty good. Not as good as perhaps people are overwhelmingly saying, but I like Will Levis, and I think he's a good quarterback.
There was a moment in this broadcast where they showed Will Levis sitting on the bench at the sidelines, and I think it was Joe Tessitore waxing poetic about how Will Levis has a linebacker mentality. And as they cut to him, Will Levis was about a knuckle deep picking his nose. Just perfect. Perfect timing by the ESPN cameramen to capture that shot. But I think you're right. This was not any kind of offensive explosion, but one of the things that we said, I think on the Spotify show that we did on Thursday, was what happens if Anthony Richardson is ineffective? If he can't run, and if they force him to throw, what does that look like for Florida? We don't know, right? I mean, this is only his third game as a full-time starter. And I think what we got was when he rushes for 4 yards and Kentucky played contain, you've got a QBR of 3.8 per ESPN. Yeah. It was not a good showing for Anthony Richardson, and he'll get better. But, you have a showing like that, and when your offense runs through a guy like Anthony Richardson, it definitely makes things harder for the defense. And Will Levis found ways to go to Dane Key, the guy that you referenced, the true freshman wideout. He's a big kid, 6'3", about 200, and he had a really nice day, looked good. And that pretty much amounted to the passing attack. So not a huge offensive explosion for either of these teams, but Kentucky in the end, by holding down Anthony Richardson the way that they did, they just had more ways to win. Wasn't a banner showing by any stretch, and they do miss Christopher Rodriguez, but Cavassier Smoke got some big yards. Will Levis got some, they found ways to get the dub. And I think, like you said, in the Swamp, that was really impressive. Another one for me is moving quickly through some of these other games. Tennessee getting the win at
What
Pitt.
A wild game. Yeah.
Crazy game. Tennessee fumbled twice and had a punt blocked on the road at Pitt. And
good team.
And still found a way to win this game. Pitt lost Keaton Slovis. Nick Patty, the backup, was hurt, playing on one leg pretty much most of the second half. So each team had a fair amount to contend with. There were definitely moments in this game, and this is what stood out to me most, because we've talked so much in the offseason here, preseason, I should say, about how good Pitt's offensive line was going to be. Like, never mind the fact that they lose Jordan Addison and that they've got a lot to replace, in other spots here and there. They've got the line, right? Doesn't matter if they don't have Kenny Pickett. They've got the line, and you can work with the line. There were moments in this game, Dan, where it was like Tecmo Bowl, where Tennessee guessed the play. And they were just in the backfield the second they snapped the ball. And so Pitt's got to clean that up as they go up against better competition, because this was not something that Tennessee was great at last year. They needed to create more havoc plays, and maybe it's just a case where they got better. But that matchup in particular, we talked a lot about the Pitt defensive line against the Tennessee offensive line. In reality, what I found really interesting in this matchup was the opposite. Tennessee's defensive front against Pitt's offensive line.
Hard to know exactly what the issue is, and I don't know the actual health of the Pitt offensive line at the moment. These shows are on pretty short notice. But it did seem that if Pitt's offensive line is reasonably healthy and talented, that maybe there were communications issues, be it from the center making calls or Keaton Slovis setting protections, because he was hit so hard, and he was hit hard by unblocked dudes.
Unblocked, right?
I am perfectly willing to accept that Tim Banks, the Tennessee defensive coordinator, does a great job confusing fronts and calling a great game. He has a very good reputation, and Tennessee definitely has guys on that defense. But there were multiple, not one, not two, but multiple instances of just clean shots.
It's a jailbreak, right?
Just
right through. Crazy.
So that's concerning. And yeah, you're right. Nick Patty was beat up, but the bright spots to me, the offensive playmakers in this game, Israel Abanikanda.
Yep.
The running back making big plays for Pitt. Obviously, Cedric Tillman for Tennessee getting open. Hendon Hooker making plays. It was a crazy, entertaining game. And one of those games, not a fantasy thing, could be, it's just a shame that one of these teams has to lose.
34.
It's just a shame. Yeah,
34,
it was real fun, though.
27 in overtime. Arkansas won. I don't have much to say about this.
Ran all over them.
Yeah, they ran all over them. KJ Jefferson's a ton of fun. South Carolina's line still stinks, but showed a lot of fight. Lose again.
Jalen Catalon out for the year, though. Bummer for Arkansas.
Big time bummer. 44-30 was your final. And the only other tidbit I have here on the SEC was Mississippi State in that game. A lot of mistakes for Mississippi State, but once the offense got rolling, Arizona just didn't have much of an answer. Arizona's much improved. They're a lot better. They're like 100% better than they were a year ago. But it's going to take some time. It's not, they can't do this thing overnight. I think Jed Fish is doing a good job, but obviously still a work in progress.
Yeah, it's also just a depth thing that over the course of the game, the deeper team is generally going to win. And if you're a mistake-prone team, which Arizona is at the moment, I don't know if you saw one of the most impressive interceptions thrown of all time from Jaden DeLaura, who avoided like 14 dudes in the backfield scrambling around and 7 sacks and then proceeded to throw a tipped interception, like a 37-second play. It was great. But yeah, Arizona, they have pieces. It's going to take some time, and good for Mississippi State. And I'm not going to say that was a losable game, but you could understand a universe in which those mistakes come around to haunt them at the end of that game. So, good for Mississippi State to survive in advance.
Hey, staying out west real quick, we had USC by 13 over Stanford. Wazoo, not playing out west, traveled to Wisconsin, but big win in Madison, 17-14.
Yeah.
Oregon State knocks off Fresno 35-32 after Jonathan Smith gambled, went for the win. We had just a series of blowouts with Utah and Oregon and UCLA, Washington. Air Force drilled Colorado 41-10, and then Cal ekes one out over UNLV by a 20-14 score. The UCLA game, or the USC game, USC could basically move the ball at will.
Mm-hmm.
There was no resistance. You were right as for Stanford really not having a chance because of their defense. That was apparent. Jordan Addison had a monster game. Caleb Williams had a monster game. I'm not going to sit here and read off stats. What I do think will be interesting to watch, though, moving forward on the USC defense side, Stanford moved the ball pretty easily in that game. They didn't get many stops.
Rocking that slow mesh. Yeah.
Didn't get many stops on defense, but Tanner McKee found guys wide open down the middle of the field. And I can't say for certain that as USC plays better competition, that will be a problem, but I think it's fair to assume after week 2 with what we saw in this game, they got to figure out some way to stop that passing attack because they did not seem like a shutdown defense.
No, USC's defense is going to haunt them a little bit this year. And they're going to score a ton of points. This is a really fun, good offense. And they slowed down a little bit, partially because of Stanford, partially because, you're scoring how many points they score in the first half? 35 points?
No.
Something like that. So, you're not going to, the schedule gets a little bit more difficult in the coming month or so. But yeah, I'm a little bit, I'd be worried if I'm a USC fan about nothing essentially with the offense, but they're now +7, +8. I was texting with our pal Jeff Schwartz about this, who's just super keen on the West Coast, all things West Coast. If USC is unable to keep generating turnovers on the level that they're generating, and they had at least a couple in the red zone, I believe, can the defense just get straight up stops?
Yeah.
That's the concerning thing to me. And great defenses generate turnovers. Absolutely. But the numbers are a little bit comical, and things tend to even out over the course of the season. And win your games. But Stanford was driving to cover, I want to say, later on in this game.
They were going for the backdoor cover.
Yeah, they were.
USC
going got that straight up stop. Yeah.
They were going for it and sort of just let the clock run out. There was no urgency to try and cover. David Shaw clearly did not bet Stanford with the points. And Tanner McKee, I thought, was actually pretty good. He had a bunch of drops that he had to contend with, but for his part, I thought he acquitted himself pretty well and was mostly accurate with the football and had success throwing against this USC defense.
No, The offenses took a step forward for sure. Like E.J.
Yeah.
Smith made plays. By the way, just elsewhere in the conference, it must be actual fun to be an Oregon State fan. Not because they're going to win 9-10 games or something like that, but because Jonathan Smith is just always going to put your dudes in position to maximize their ability and situations.
Oh, yeah.
That goes for the win at the end of the game against Fresno State. I think the first time the program has ever won in Fresno with the big sort of bruising rushing quarterback, package quarterback, Jack Coletto, the linebacker. And they made plays. It's one of those teams that just, they're going to find guys in the portal. They're going to continue to take advantage of other teams' flaws, and they'll lose to more talented teams with a good deal of consistency. But damn, this is a quality Beav team, and it showed against Fresno State. They were able to, not getting a lot of stops.
No.
Like, of the 3 J's, was it Jordan Mims, Jalen Cropper, Jake Hayner? I may have gotten one of those names wrong. Got a lot on this Oregon State defense. But Jonathan Smith and this team, this coaching squad especially, did everything they could to come out with a W, and they absolutely did. Good for them.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, I mean, Fresno drove to the Oregon State or closer 7 times in this game. They came away with just 2 touchdowns and a bunch of field goals.
Yes, they tightened up.
They tightened up.
If you're going to have a below average defense, have a really good red zone.
Have a really good red zone defense. Yeah.
Yeah.
The only other game here that I do want to mention, Wazoo.
Please.
Wazoo, big game. Big game.
Yeah.
17-14. You know what they say in Wisconsin, Dan. You're pretty close to Wisconsin, actually.
They say, I'll have another.
No, Clay Cundiff will giveth, and Clay Cundiff will taketh away.
Sure.
Wisconsin Badger tight end caught the only 2 touchdowns in the second quarter of this game. He also had a bonehead penalty and then a fumble in the fourth quarter that really changed the complexion of it. This is one of those games where you check the box score, and it looks like it was all Wisconsin, and then you're going down and you're looking, and you get to turnovers and penalties. Okay.
Yeah.
Now I get it. This is a sloppy game all around. 6 total turnovers, 3 apiece, but 11 penalties for Wisconsin, which really came back to bite him in the end. Really came back to bite him in the end. Nice win for Jake Dickert, by the way, in Wazoo. It's their first win over a ranked team in 4 years.
Yeah. Did plenty to lose this game.
They did. They tried. They did try.
Are you fully out on Cameron Ward yet?
No, he's my boy.
Okay.
Still my boy.
Yeah, have fun with that. Wisconsin's just another pickleball team. Like, they're not going to generate enough. I mean, they generated some. Was it Keontez Lewis? Is he the UCLA transfer at receiver for Wisconsin? It's an unserious program in terms of closing out winnable games by the ability to do so in multiple ways. And if Graham Mertz's the best you got, you're a pickleball team. That's all.
Over in the Big 12, we had Oklahoma State doubling up ASU 34-17. Kansas State, your Kansas State Wildcats, which I know you want to talk about, a little EMAW, 40-12 over Mizzou. Kansas, big win over West Virginia, 55-42. We had Oklahoma getting off to a really rocky start, but then pouring it on in the second half to win by 30 over Kent State, and TCU went big over Tarleton, Dan.
Tarleton.
Also, we had the Tech-Houston game, which was a ton of fun.
That was wild.
Ton of fun.
I thought Houston was going to pull it out late.
So did
when
I.
Got that interception, but to go overtime consecutive weeks against quality teams, it's tough. It's tough.
Did you see the stats in this game? Genuinely weird stats that
I did.
I think paint the portrait.
Well,
of,
Tank Dell is good. He's just a full-on dude. But yeah.
Oh yeah. No, but I think not that we dwell on the box score here. We don't read stats on this show, but it is important context. And in this case, it really does tell the story of a chaotic game. This was a chaotic game. You had over 800 yards of offense, 5 turnovers, a combined 10 for 34 on third downs, 11 penalties for Houston alone, 35 first downs in 37 minutes of possession for Texas Tech. And then, of course, Tech wins, and they storm the field after beating the number 25 team in the country, which is a creative choice, let's say, in Lubbock. But sort of a mixed bag here for Donovan Smith. He had good numbers in the end, but also 3 picks. We'll see if he can continue to develop. I like the way he closed the season last year, but he's going to get more of an opportunity now with Tyler Shuck again hurt to see what he can do next week on the road against NC State.
Yeah, it was a game in which enough weird stuff happened that the winner was going to go to whoever won the dice roll. That was how it felt at the end of that game, that somebody's going to win, and I will never throw shade, at least not moving forward. I try my best not to. Texas Tech is favored. They by what? A field goal-ish, 3.5 points, and they win the game, and they rush the field, and great. Be happy when your team wins. Not all of our teams win.
True.
Okay?
Very true. Very true.
Be happy.
Be happy. Why not?
If Notre Dame had stormed the field after beating Marshall, you would have had the old heads say, why are we celebrating a win over Marshall? We're Notre Dame. You know why you celebrate wins? Because they're better than losses.
Because they're wins. Because
they're wins.
Yeah.
And good. It's fun to go to football games and be happy, because I have not always done that. So, yes, Texas Tech walks away with a win. Hopefully, Tyler Shuck is back early. Just Donovan Smith is that. He occupies that wild card space, for better or for worse, and probably giving some Tech fans some heart palpitations at various times during that game.
Yeah,
but
I don't have a whole lot to say about the Big 12 as a whole.
Yeah.
A nice bounce back effort for the Pokes defense. They gave up a ton of points and yards last week against Central Michigan, but held ASU down outside of like 3 or 4 big plays. So they look pretty good on that side of the ball. Kansas beats West Virginia. Weirdly, a game with 2 quarterbacks who were initialed as Jay Daniels in the box score, which is always a little fun. But Jalen Daniels for Kansas with over 300 total yards, 3 passing touchdowns. They were down 21-7. They played hard. Lance Leipold has them playing hard. Oklahoma, despite sputtering a bit, the good news is that next week they're visiting a specialist that might be able to help them cure their offense.
Sure.
Up in Lincoln, Nebraska, when they travel to square off against Scott Frost. And I wanted to carve out a little bit of time for you to talk about the K-State series of events.
Well, first of all, Mizzou football might have a full-on bad offense. K-State's fine. Adrian Martinez is limited in what I think he'll be able to produce for the Wildcats, and I don't know if it's a Kansas State thing or I just saw a number of stories about how this was broken and this was sprained and this was shattered and fresh start this, fresh start that, and Deuce Vaughn's still really good. That's my Kansas State takeaway, and the defense appears to be good. Mizzou, though, that's maybe there's something in the universe. Maybe there's that galactic dust between Sean Clark and Eli Drinkwitz. You leave a school after a year, and you're going to be dealing with that galactic karma dust for some time, and maybe Sean Clark taking over and keeping things rolling in Boone. There's something happened with the polls involved with App State. That's Poles, not Polls.
Right.
So, yeah, I don't know if Mizzou's a year away, but generally you'd like to be decent before being a year away and being good, not atrocious and being a year away.
12 points. So, 12 points against K-State.
Yeah, 12 points. Rough.
All right, Big Ten. Let's go to the Big Ten. Georgia Southern beat Nebraska, Dan. You called this one, didn't you? Yeah, I don't think you picked him outright, but you said plus the points.
You didn't even recognize that this game was going to occur on our preview show before I stepped in for the people.
You did.
For the people.
Yeah, you did. Georgia Southern, coached by one Clay Helton.
Yeah.
First off,
yeah,
let's not take anything away. Georgia Southern's a good team. They lit up the Huskers defense. 642 yards, 409 of which came courtesy of the Eagles quarterback, Kyle Van Treese, the sixth-year guy who transferred down from Buffalo. You may recall that name from yesteryear here in College Footballville. But, look, Nebraska, another close loss, 45-42. Better offense this year, worse defense, much worse defense. And we had the student section chanting Fire Frost down the stretch. No big surprise. Surely at this point, a 1-2 Nebraska losing 2 games to Northwestern and now Georgia Southern. Surely the Scott Frost era is coming to an end. Surely it's already over and it's just not been formally announced, right?
I guess we'll see what happens. Wouldn't it be college football? Wouldn't it be this stupid sport for Nebraska to go and beat Oklahoma next week.
It really
wouldn't that be the most college football thing that could potentially happen?
Do we want to form a pact here? Do we want to form a
Okay.
pact right now that on the preview show, when we record it, we will devote our collective brain power to talking everybody into Nebraska beating Oklahoma outright?
Sure.
You want to do that with me?
Why not?
I mean, we can't
This
pick
is the
games
whole
right when we
point.
try to. So maybe if we fake it, we'll do better.
First of all, as it relates to this game, Georgia Southern, good offense.
Good offense.
I don't think Nebraska has a good defense.
No.
But to go into that environment and as a first-year coach, and I'm saying all these things about first-year coaches, that it takes time, blah, blah, blah. They went in and made plays. Coventry spread the ball around. They put themselves in a position at the end of the game. Big throws, came up big in big moments, survived a missed field goal at the end from Nebraska, a long one, and move forward with a win. That's a positive thing for the Stun Belt. And I don't know how exactly stunning it is because we'll see how good Northwestern actually is if we're doing all sorts of tangitive comparisons. It's the tangitive property, right? Or am I speaking English correctly?
The transitive?
The transitive. See, I can't even do that. Nebraska's screwing up my vocabulary. Yeah, I mean, his buyout, Scott Frost's buyout, goes down October 1st, I think I saw.
Yeah.
So that would be in the wake of an Indiana game. So maybe Tom Allen is the angel of death. But it does not appear that this is a Nebraska team ascending in the right way. So, yeah, I don't know what to tell you. They made plays on offense. They scored enough points to win this game. But as soon as Nebraska fans said to themselves, well, the defense is pretty good after last year. And they lost big players. I understand that. Defense is not good.
Nope.
It's just not.
Speaking of ascension, Dan, J.J. McCarthy. J.J. McCarthy, 11 for 12, 229, 3 touchdowns through the air in a big win for Michigan over Hawaii. Cade McNamara got a cup of coffee in this game, but went 4 of 6 with a pick. The offense did not look good when he came in. He was very frustrated. It was apparent on his face. I think this pretty much seals the deal. Much seals the deal that we're going to see J.J. McCarthy moving forward as the new Michigan starter. I don't think we'll find any objections out there, maybe outside of Cade McNamara. So I think we've solved that riddle. The only other point here on the Michigan game is that Donovan Edwards got hurt.
Yeah, I saw that.
The sophomore running back. He went out limping in the second quarter. He didn't return. I have not seen an update at time of recording what his status will be moving forward, but he did figure to be a pretty big piece of that offense, still oriented to a great extent around a power rushing game, and he was going to factor in. So more to come on that front, but a big win for Michigan by 46 points.
Yeah, I don't have a ton on the Michigan and J.J. McCarthy thing beyond he looks really good against a team that most really good quarterbacks should look really good against. And the degree to which he was confident in stepping into balls downfield, making the correct reads very quickly and confidently says to me that this is the guy that if Michigan is going to give themselves the best chance to beat schools like Michigan State and Penn State and Ohio State and whatever comes in Michigan's postseason, this is the guy that is going to get closer to scoring 38 points a week than Cade McNamara. And further away from barely getting by Rutgers or Nebraska when they shouldn't be. So it seems like you watch J.J. McCarthy and you're like, you're 123 schools and you say to yourself, wish my quarterback looked like that.
Yeah.
But it's Hawaii and it's different. But that's what a really good quarterback should look like against Hawaii.
I couldn't agree more. Okay, elsewhere in the Big Ten, you mentioned the big Rutgers win. We'll just say it again. Rutgers 66, Wagner 7, Indiana by 13 over Idaho.
Down at the half?
Down at the half, yep.
Yeah.
Purdue blanks Indiana State 56-0. Maryland wins, big game for Talia, 391, 4 touchdowns over Charlotte. Minnesota 62-10 over Western Illinois. Just a quiet assassin. Yes, sir. I almost said SEC West. That'd be something. In the Big Ten West, conference realignment, eating my brain. We had Michigan State blanking Akron by a 52-0 score. They play at Washington next week, which is kind
very
of a fun
quietly
matchup.
the game of the week next week, by the way. I don't know what else is on there, but that is, in terms of games to circle immediately, I have no idea if Washington's good. They appear to be more professionally run at the moment.
That is
They're
correct.
beating up on overmatched teams, which they didn't always. And Michigan State's doing the same thing. They haven't always. I'm excited for this matchup.
Ohio State big over Arkansas State. I won't sit here and read stats, but obviously a really big offensive showing for the Buckeyes. Marvin Harrison Jr., just a man out there, as is Emeka Egbuka. Each of those guys score, some more than once, go over 100 yards easily in the receiving game. We had Illinois 24, Virginia 3, Dan.
From the jump, son. From the jump, good sir. Yeah.
24-3. Tommy DeVito threw an interception on his first pass, which sort of set a trend. There were 7 turnovers in this game. And last but certainly not least, Penn State wins by 36. The Penn State development is interesting. Penn State's got Auburn next week.
Yeah.
And we talk often about the week 1 to week 2 jump. Granted, playing Ohio is not playing Purdue. It is a different set of circumstances. But in this game, Penn State finally ran the damn ball. They finally ran the damn ball. Nick Singleton, 10 carries, 179, 2 touchdowns. He's another guy. I talked about Quinn Ewers before. Just kind of feels different. He feels different. Nick Singleton has a burst to the edge that our good friend David Jones of Penn Live called out. And he said, there's an off-tackle play. I forget when it was exactly, but an off-tackle play that was basically the same exact play. Nick Singleton getting the ball versus Kevon Lee getting the ball. And Nick Singleton went for a 70-yard touchdown. Kevon Lee was stopped for no gain. So the combination of that, who I think he's the starter, the number 1 going forward for sure.
Okay.
With Drew Aller. I finally learned how to say his name. It's Aller.
Is it?
It's Aller. Yeah.
Okay.
Drew Aller.
I keep hearing Alar.
Drew, you can call him whatever you want, but
I know.
Drew, I'm going to try to get it right. Drew Aller,
Yeah.
again, got some time in this game and looked superb. 6 of 8, 88 yards, 2 touchdowns. It is abundantly clear that he is better than Sean Clifford.
Yeah.
I have no idea how James Franklin's going to handle this. I have no idea. Sean Clifford's back for his 6th year. He clearly knows the offense. And in this game, he ran it pretty well. He ran the ball well. He showed his legs. And I think did a pretty good job getting this team to where it needed to be. He looked better and he didn't get hurt, which is nice. But Drew Aller's better, man. I mean, he's just effortless out there. And so I don't know, again, if it's like one loss for Penn State and then they decide we're going to Aller. I don't know if it's the kind of thing where Sean Clifford's ineffective on the road against Auburn or something like that, and they bring him in as a change of pace guy. But I really feel like it is not long before we see him. Sean Clifford is not finishing the year as Penn State's starting quarterback. He's just not.
I love all these leaps against Ohio.
I know. I know.
This guy's the guy. This guy's the guy.
But he is.
Like, you want
Dan, he is. He is. You saw it last week after 2 throws against Purdue. He's the guy.
I hear you. And you're not necessarily wrong, but we can go back and look at Sean Clifford numbers against MAC teams when he was young and be like, oh, damn, 12.4 yards per attempt. Sean Clifford's the next Trace McSorley. It's Ohio. It's Ohio. And sometimes there is a happy medium when a guy doesn't have huge upside, but the young guy isn't quite ready, and the young guy will lose you a game that's in a winnable spot.
That's fair. That's fair.
The average guy will somehow pull something out. And it's fine. And you got to play for the future. You got to play for like what gives you the best long-term chance. And I understand you have fully converted to Drudyism. I'm good with that. I can make that joke. You can't.
I can't make that joke.
I'm fully aware of your conversion. But Ohio. That's all.
All right.
It's Ohio.
And let's close it out. Let's talk about the ACC quick, all right?
Yeah.
A bunch of matchups here. None of them played each other, so there's a gazillion games.
Go for it.
Miami over Southern Miss. They led just 10-7 at half, and took them a while to get the offense going, but they've got A&M next week, by the way.
Cool. Miami fans getting used to some of the longer stretches of Christo ball on offense. Continue.
30-7 was your final here. Sam Hartman came back. It was almost like he never left.
So good.
300 yards, 4 touchdowns, no picks, 20-point win over Vandy. We had North Carolina again. hope you're not a North Carolina fan expecting any kind of defense this year. It's just going to be all gas, no brakes, offense, and no defense. Drake May looks okay. The defense, highly problematic. They win by 7 against Georgia State. We had Duke off to a 2-0 start now. 2-0 start under Mike Elko. A big win against your Northwestern Wildcats.
Northwestern Cats, yeah.
They led 21-0 early in the second quarter. We had Virginia Tech by a 27-10 score over Boston College. A dominant effort on defense by Virginia Tech. BC looks terrible.
They look bad. And the BC defense might be all right, but this offense is rough.
The BC offense did not get a first down until the final drive of the first half. Yeah. Really bad showing. NC State big over Charleston Southern. Clemson wins by 23 over Furman. They got outgained by Furman, which is a interesting statistical.
That doesn't do much for me.
Math quirk. Yeah. Syracuse big over UConn. Georgia Tech by 18 over Western Carolina. And as we travel back in time to the Friday night game, Louisville wins 20-14 over UCF in a game that featured 23 penalties and a combined 8 for 30.
Yeah.
On third downs, Louisville clamped down on your boy John Rice Plumlee.
Yeah.
And made him pass, which basically meant he was ineffective. And inconsistent at best, but ineffective to play it nice. Louisville wins. Nice follow-up campaign after what happened to them in week 1 against Syracuse.
Couple follow-up nuggies on the ACC. A.J. Swan for Vanderbilt in the loss to Wake Forest. Freshman came in when Mikey Wright was not effective, like you like to point out over so politically.
It's the professional
and
way
kindly.
to say it,
I appreciate it. But yes, Wake's defense really did a number on the Vandy offense, but A.J. Swan comes in. He's the future at quarterback for the Doors and looked pretty promising. Here's something to pay attention to, because I had this on the quiet TV, on the muted TV in the early going, because I didn't know which game outside of Alabama, Texas was going to be exciting or fun, because I was watching, because I went to the tailgate, a little bit of Northwestern Duke. Riley Leonard, quietly, kind of interesting for Duke. Throws a confident ball and looks like he could be a fun, if everything comes along around him on both sides of the ball for Duke eventually. Kind of a fun.
A lot of qualifiers there, Dan.
No, I mean, it's tough to just be a young quarterback. I'm pretty sure he's young. It's tough to show that promise, but not have receivers or an offensive line or a defense to hold up its end of the bargain, which Duke is going to go through some lumps this year. But you watch him play, and I don't think Northwestern's defense is all that crazy good. But you're like, oh, there's a spark there with Riley Leonard.
Is he the best Riley in the state of North Carolina since Riley Skinner?
You're gonna have to cycle through a number of players, but yes. How about that? Yes. And again, let's highlight the really cool story of Sam Hartman dealing with what he dealt with health wise and coming in. And I understand it's Vanderbilt, but whatever. Look sharp. He and A.T. Perry.
Okay. What else do you got here, Dan? Before we put a bow on this thing, we didn't get any dramatic drive readings from you. I'm assuming you've got dudes. Like what? Where do we take this show here in the final minutes?
Well, Holy Cross with a Hail Mary over Buffalo.
Yeah.
Boise State, kind of another not great offensive showing early on, but got it together against New Mexico, if that means anything. Georgia beat up on Samford because all of the greats lose to Georgia. Speaking of which, Oregon dropped 70 on Eastern Washington. Okay. It doesn't seem like they fully trust Bo Nix down the field.
Really?
Against Eastern Washington.
I find that surprising, Dan.
Against Eastern Washington. But they didn't always beat up in this way on overmatched opponents under Mario Cristobal, so I'll take it if that's okay with you. You mentioned North Carolina briefly. They get by late against Georgia State, who I insist is still might be pretty good. Army threw for 200-plus yards in the first half.
And lost, right? Didn't they lose?
In a losing effort, another impressive performance from the Roadrunners and Frank Harris on the road, which I think we both liked Army in that one. Did we not?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, nice with 2 games in a row for UTSA going to OT.
Yeah, Stan Drayton, who has a good story. They get shut out last week by Duke, but they beat Lafayette somehow. Find a way. You grazed over Air Force over Colorado. Air Force, Falcons full-on good team. I'm just going to say it. Cal beat UNLV kind of barely. Justin Wilcox still not figuring out offense, which is not my favorite thing as a fan of West Coast football. EKU 59, Bowling Green 57, and not 3, not 4, not 5, not 6, but 7 overtimes, including a intended lateral to an offensive lineman on a trick play that did not work for EKU. I believe it was for EKU. In a winning effort, though, my Dukes of James Madison, big over your Norfolk State whatevers. Middle Tennessee, who suffered at the hands of James Madison last week, they get in the win column with a win over Colorado State and Jay Norvell. Nevada lost to Incarnate Word and gave up 50+ in the process. ECU beats Old Dominion comfortably. ODU coming off of the Virginia Tech win. The Pirates coming off of a near win against NC State. Otherwise, not a lot. UAB goes down to Liberty.
Hold on. One other point of emphasis here.
Please.
I dunked on Notre Dame a fair amount, and they deserve it because they lost. But
please, continue.
At the end of this game, go back and watch it on YouTube if you didn't see it in real time. Notre Dame attempted an onside kick. That was beautiful.
Okay.
It was the most beautiful onside kick these eyes have ever seen.
Whoa.
Their kicker put the ball on the tee horizontally and then kicked one of the sides. So it was just a low spinner that was spinning as it went along the ground. It stayed perfectly on the ground the entire way there as if it were a bowling ball. Notre Dame had an opportunity to recover it, and it just didn't go down the field quickly enough. But it was beautiful. So, if anything, at least they have that. He will never kick it that well again, ever. You never get 2 of them. But that one was beautiful if you like onside kicks. So go and check it out. Didn't recover it, but could have.
I think that's everything I sort of have, unless you want to get into the Patriot League or anything like that. Memphis looked good against Navy. Navy might be full on bad.
Let's do dudes. You got dudes?
I do have dudes.
Give me some dudes here for week 2.
Mentioned Jordan Wright in that interception coming back from suspension for Kentucky. Raheem Sanders for Arkansas. Chase Brown, Illinois. Kalen LeBourne, Ty, for Marshall at running back. Jordan Addison probably should be retired at this point for USC. Yeah. Cedric Tillman. I know it's Cedric, but I like saying Cedric. Frank Harris for UTSA going on the road and getting it done. And then, of course, Sam Hartman for Wake Forest. How about that?
Shout out to Beat U of A, to Andrew, to Sean, to Catherine, to C. Ken P.
Shay,
David, whole bunch of folks watching, commenting along here as we do our week 2 reaction pod. Always fun. Would encourage folks out there to check out verballers.com if you're not familiar, to vote in our poll. I'm excited about it. I think the Verballerhood is as well. VERBALLERS.com is where you can find out more about that. SolidVerbalLive.com. Come and see us in the throes of this whole weird college football season. It is definitely ratcheting up in a weird way that we did not expect.
Should we try to get Sam Laporta to the show?
Try to get Sam. Yeah, we'll see if we can send an unmarked panel van to pick him up and bring him over. And last but certainly not least, over at solidgiveaway.com, we've got a CJ Stroud helmet that we're giving away this week.
Oh.
Solidgiveaway.com, a few quick and easy and free steps to get your name in that hat. We will draw the winner, I think, October 14th, middle of next month.
Incredible.
All right. Fun show, as always. I know I say that a lot, but I really mean it this time, I promise you. We appreciate the Verballerhood, as always, calling in to the Reverb line at 408-VERBAL-1, joining in on our Verballer community on Discord and verballers.com. It was so awesome to follow along all the action, along with hundreds of other Verballers, just to get the rhymes and rhythms of what's happening out there in the college football world from the people that we trust the most, our Verballerhood.
Yeah.
Last but certainly not least, going out to solidverbal.com. Check out the website. We post articles on an ongoing basis, Dan. That's all I got.
Yeah, imagine watching the incredible slate we had in week 2 and saying to yourself, man, I wonder who the top 4 are in January. I wonder how this is going to affect the rankings because the rest of... Enjoy football. Enjoy football while it's happening. This is the whole point. The rest of that is just the after show. That's all.
For that guy over there, sporting a new voice, Dan Rubenstein. For myself, Ty Hildenbrand, thanks so much for downloading, listening, playing along at home. We'll be back in a few days, talk more college football. In the meantime, stay solid.
Peace.